So we begin to wonder what happens when the universe decides to play hide and seek with something that shouldn't be able to hide. There are these profound moments in physics, these turning points, where an object simply vanishes from our most sophisticated tracking systems, and reality itself seems to mock everything we thought we understood about orbital mechanics. And right now we're standing at the edge of one of those moments. Every telescope on Earth, every orbital observatory, every radar array was positioned to witness what should have been a spectacular display of interstellar physics. But here's where it gets interesting. That seemingly routine observation would evolve into something that challenges the very foundations of what we know. Because 3I Atlas, marking it as the third visitor from beyond our solar neighborhood to cross our threshold, did something no natural object should be capable of doing. It disappeared, not gradually fading from view as it journeyed away from our sun, but vanished abruptly from our detection systems in a way that violates every principle we understand about orbital mechanics. Let me paint you a picture that might make you pause. Imagine something racing through space at over 200 kilometers per hour, mean speeds that dwarf nearly everything else moving through our cosmic backyard. We tracked it meticulously for months as it approached the sun. We measured its bizarre deceleration between September 23rd and September 26th, documented its impossible trajectory alignment with our solar system's ecliptic plane to within just 5 degrees. Analyzed its anomalous hollow structure that defied conventional comet physics. Everything proceeded according to expectation until that critical date, October 29, 2025. And here's what really captures the imagination. When 3I Atlas swung behind the sun from Earth's perspective, entering that predicted observation gap we knew would last several weeks, something changed. When the geometry finally allowed our telescopes to track the region where it should have emerged on the far side, continuing along its calculated trajectory, the object simply wasn't there. Multiple observatories confirmed the absence. The James Webb Space Telescope found nothing. Ground-based radar arrays detected no signal. The European Space Agency's tracking systems reported empty space. 33 billion tons of matter should have been traveling at precisely calculated velocities. Initially, the scientific community remained cautiously analytical. After all, we'd seen unusual behavior before, hadn't we? Back in 2017, we encountered Oumuamua, that elongated anomaly that accelerated mysteriously without visible outgassing. Then, in 2019, 2I Borisov passed through, behaving more conventionally but still displaying anomalies. But perhaps they thought Atlas had simply fragmented during its close solar approach. So they searched, they scanned, they recalculated trajectories with precision. And for weeks now, Atlas remains missing. A phantom that slipped through the machinery of our solar system and vanished at the exact moment it should have been most visible. But then the implications started to sink in. When comets fragment, they leave evidence. We observe expanding debris clouds, dust trails that persist for weeks, individual fragments following slightly divergent paths that remain trackable. The Hubble Space Telescope can resolve objects smaller than a city block at interplanetary distance. Yet comprehensive searches of the predicted trajectory zone have yielded nothing. No debris field, no dust signature, no fragmentary remnants whatsoever. It's as if 3I Atlas simply ceased to exist the moment it passed beyond our direct observation capability. Now, if this were where the enigma ended, we'd already have enough material to fuel decades of investigation. But 3I Atlas's behavior before its disappearance refuses to play by any rulebook we've written. The anomalies stack up one after another, each more puzzling than the last. So let's examine what makes this vanishing act so profoundly disturbing. Consider the trajectory miscalculation theory first. Perhaps our orbital predictions contained errors and the object emerges from perihelion along a path significantly different from what we expected, placing it outside our search zones. But this explanation confronts a mathematical problem. We tracked 3I Atlas continuously for months before perihelion. We measured its position, velocity, and acceleration with extraordinary precision using multiple independent observatories. The trajectory calculations incorporated relativistic corrections, solar radiation pressure, on gravitational perturbations from every major body in our solar system. The error margins on these predictions are astonishingly small, typically measured in hundreds of kilometers across interplanetary distances. To completely miss the object would require trajectory changes orders of magnitude larger than any natural process could produce. Then we encounter what Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has been warning about since he first analyzed 3I Atlas's deceleration patterns. What if the disappearance isn't accidental? What if perihelion represented exactly what we feared it might, an opportunity for deliberate trajectory modification hidden from our observation by the sun's overwhelming glare? We're not talking about small deviations here. We're discussing the equivalent of an object the size of a mountain suddenly deciding to visit Jupiter instead of continuing toward the outer solar system. That doesn't happen naturally. Let me walk you through the physics of what could have occurred. The Olbers effect, named after German physicist Hermann Olbers, describes a counterintuitive principle of orbital mechanics. When you apply thrust at the lowest point in a gravity well at maximum velocity, a modest propulsive force produces enormous changes in your final trajectory. It's the most efficient moment possible for course corrections. And perihelion, that closest approach to our sun on October 29th, represented the deepest point in the most powerful gravity, well within billions of kilometers. If 3I Atlas possessed any form of propulsion capability, if it carried energy reserves sufficient for controlled thrust, that moment represented the optimal time to use them, a relatively small delta. V shows applied precisely at perihelion could transform an escape trajectory into an elliptical orbit, converting a temporary visitor into a permanent resident of our solar system. Or alternatively, it could redirect the object towards specific destinations, perhaps the asteroid belt, where it might rendezvous with other bodies, perhaps toward the outer planets where long-term observation could continue undisturbed. The timing becomes either deeply suspicious or represents yet another improbable coincidence, added to an already statistically troubling list we couldn't observe during the critical window. Our surveillance went dark for weeks, precisely when anything extraordinary would have occurred. hidden behind 1.4 million kilometers of blazing stellar plasma. And when visibility finally returned, when the geometry allowed detection, once again the object had vanished, as if deliberately exploiting that blind spot. Now consider what we know about 3I Atlas's behavior before perihelion. Because the pattern suggests planning rather than random cosmic wandering, this object arrived aligned with our solar system's ecliptic plane to within just 5 degrees, a geometric orientation occurring less than twice per 100 random approaches. It executed measurable deceleration between September 23rd and September 26th, slowing from 68.2 kilometers per second to 67.9 kilometers per second. Violated every natural process we understand. Its density measurements suggested a hollow interior, an architectural feature that makes no sense for naturally accreted bodies, but perfect sense for engineered structures requiring minimal mass and maximum internal volume. It survived a direct coronal mass ejection that should have shredded any loosely bound aggregate of ice and dust. It maintained rotational stability that tumbling natural objects never achieve. And perhaps most tellingly, it executed a precision flyby of Mars on October 3rd, passing within 2.9 million kilometers at timing so statistically improbable that random coincidence calculates at less than 1 chance in 50,000. Every single one of these observations individually could be explained away through creative application of exotic but still natural physics, unusual chemistry here, fortunate geometric alignment there. Perhaps some novel sublimation process we haven't encountered before, but collectively they form a pattern. And patterns in nature typically indicate underlying organization, whether through physical laws we understand or through intentional design we're only beginning to recognize. The disappearance represents something fundamentally different from anything we experienced with Oumuamua. Yes, that first interstellar visitor behaved mysteriously. It accelerated away from our sun without visible outgassing. Explain the thrust. Its elongated shape and high albedo suggested artificial origins to researchers like Avi Loeb. But ultimately, Oumuamua followed a predictable hyperbolic trajectory. It arrived. It accelerated anomalously, and it departed along a path we could calculate and track until it simply became too distant and faint for our instruments to follow. 3I Atlas has done something categorically different. It hasn't faded gradually into undetectability as distance increased. It vanished abruptly at a moment when it should have been at peak visibility, emerging from perihelion, heated and active, potentially displaying spectacular cometary features that would make it one of the brightest objects in our night sky. Instead, we're left staring at empty space and confronting questions that challenge the comfortable assumptions they maintained since the dawn of observational astronomy. The institutional response to this disappearance deserves examination because it mirrors patterns we've seen before. NASA's official statements remain carefully neutral, emphasizing the need for comprehensive data analysis before drawing conclusions. The European Space Agency acknowledges the detection gap, but maintains that fragmentary dissolution remains the most probable explanation. China's space program, which had optimal viewing geometry from their Tianwen-1 Mars orbiter during the critical flyby, continues withholding detailed imagery and analysis. This conspicuous silence carries historical precedent. When Oumuamua transited our solar system in 2017, certain spectroscopic measurements and high-resolution radar data remained classified or unpublished for months. When 2I Borisov arrived in 2019, we witnessed similar delays in releasing comprehensive observational datasets. And now, as 3I Atlas performs its vanishing act, the information pipeline has tightened once again, like a valve being gradually closed. Perhaps these delays stem from purely bureaucratic causes, government shutdowns, instrument calibration uncertainties, or simply cautious institutional vetting of extraordinary claims before public release. But the pattern becomes increasingly difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Each time an interstellar visitor challenges our fundamental expectations about natural phenomena, official channels grow mysteriously quiet. And that silence itself becomes a kind of signal, a message conveyed through conspicuous absence. To me, as a theoretical physicist who has spent decades contemplating the universe's stranger possibilities, this doesn't represent conspiracy in any traditional sense. It represents something more human and ultimately more understandable. It's institutional caution confronting the genuinely unknown. It's the fear of public misunderstanding, of premature speculation, spiraling beyond control, of acknowledging something doesn't fit comfortably within established frameworks. But science cannot progress if we permit fear to dictate the boundaries of acceptable inquiry. If 3I Atlas fragmented naturally, we should find evidence of that fragmentation. If it altered trajectory through exotic but still natural processes, we should be able to model those processes and predict where it went. And if neither explanation suffices, if we're truly confronting something beyond our current understanding, whether representing novel physics or technological artifacts, then we have an obligation to pursue that truth honestly, regardless of how uncomfortable the implications might be. The next several weeks will prove critical. Observatories worldwide are conducting comprehensive searches of regions where 3I Atlas might have redirected itself. The James Webb Space Telescope is dedicating observation time to scanning zones where natural trajectory perturbations could have sent fragments. Ground-based radar arrays are sweeping through calculated possible positions, listening for any reflected signal that might reveal the object's current location. If we find nothing, if 3I Atlas has truly vanished without trace or explanation, we'll be forced to confront possibilities that most scientists have comfortably relegated to science fiction. Could an object actually conceal itself from detection? Could it possess stealth capabilities, materials, or configurations that minimize reflectivity across electromagnetic spectrums? Could it have maneuvered so dramatically during perihelion that it now occupies regions of space we haven't tasted thought to search? Or perhaps most unsettling of all, could the disappearance be exactly what it appears? An intentional exit, a departure executed precisely when observation proved impossible, leaving behind only questions and to profound realization that we may have witnessed something operating under principles we've yet to comprehend. Whether 3I Atlas ultimately proves natural or artificial, Whether it fragmented catastrophically, departed deliberately, it has already accomplished something profound. It's forced our collective consciousness to expand beyond the comfortable certainties. It's demonstrated that the universe operates under absolutely no obligation to conform, or expectations or fit neatly within our existing categories. The cosmos has sent us 3 interstellar visitors in 8 years. The first accelerated mysteriously. The second behaved more conventionally, but still displayed anomalies. The third decelerated impossibly and then vanished. That's not a random pattern. That's an escalating sequence. And if the universe, or whatever intelligence might inhabit it, is trying to capture our attention, this would be precisely how to do it. Right now, somewhere in the darkness between worlds, 33 billion tons of matter we were tracking mere weeks ago exists in some location. We cannot identify. Either we fundamentally misunderstood the physics governing interstellar objects, or we've just witnessed technology in action. Either possibility transforms everything we thought we understood about our cosmic neighborhood. The truth will emerge eventually, it always does. But until that moment arrives, we're left standing at the threshold of profound uncertainty, contemplating the unsettling reality that something from beyond our solar system came, looked around, and departed on its own terms, leaving us with nothing but questions and the growing suspicion that the universe is far stranger and far more populated than we ever dared to imagine. And perhaps that's the most terrifying revelation of all. Not that 3i Atlas disappeared, but that we're finally beginning to recognize just how little we truly understand about what moves through the cosmic darkness surrounding our tiny blue world. Whatever its true nature ultimately reveals itself to be, it has already accomplished something profound. It has forced our collective consciousness to expand beyond the comfortable boundaries of conventional scientific thinking. And that represents the genuine treasure of discoveries like this. They serve as powerful reminders that the universe refuses to be reduced to a solved equation, neatly cataloged and filed away. It remains vibrantly alive. Thanks for watching. If you want to continue watching, go ahead and check out the videos suggested on your screen. See you on the other one.